What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Grits Code. Of course, it is me. It is I, Tadian here. And as always, we have Earl and Julian. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Dominique Morgan. Dominique Morgan is not only that girl, but she is an award-winning artist, activist, philanthropist, and the first of so many things, including being the first living trans woman to have a street named after her, as well as the first ever Apple model. All the things. So we're excited to jump into all of that in Dominique's story. But in light of Women's History Month, not only do we want to create space to share Dominique's story as an individual, but really reflect and highlight the lived experience of Black trans women all around the world, specifically here in the South. So as we get started, Dominique, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How are you? How you feeling? What's the tea?
You know what? I am lovely. It is a chilly yet sunny morning in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I will take that, and I'm just glad to be with y'all. I love what you all are doing for the culture and the conversations you all are activating. So thank you for having me and letting me be a part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So to kick things off, Dominique, I want to talk in celebration of Women's History Month about the women who inspired you, really as you were developing your sense of self, your womanhood, and just coming to terms with the world around you. So who are the women that inspired you?
I would say at the core, my mother. She is no longer with us. My mother was a Sagittarius, December 6th.
Okay. Now.
Colleen was a force, and there are things about myself that people will compliment, and anytime somebody is like, how I love people or how I show up for people, I attribute that to my mother. My mother taught me how to love. Her and my dad met in the 9th grade. They got married right out of high school. I'm the oldest of 4. They were married for 27 years before my father passed away. My daddy was a cancer. So it was like I watched this woman wash our clothes by hand, and I would still come home at 3:00 from school, and the meals would be done, but also the Sagittarius in her, she had rearranged the whole living room, and just her power and her voice, and I did not know. So she always was my idol, but I did not know how much she would be my blueprint in really the best part of my life, right. and that's how I look at my time since my medical and social transition has taken place. I'm the biggest, most complete version of myself, and I would say, Colleen, absolutely, mom was the blueprint, and outside of that, just Black women in general. I'm a girl that grew up in the 90s, so even just aesthetics and things like that, it's very much, if you see my makeup or you see my looks, I grew up, me and Brandy are about the same age, so I thought I was Cinderella. I want a no makeup look before TikTok said it was cute, because I want to give a Gabrielle Union, fresh popping out, a Nia Long said it. The beauty of Black women in the 90s, I think we talk about it, but I don't think we dive into the effortlessness of it, and how the beauty was really based in that their Blackness made them more beautiful. Like they had aesthetics like based on, the girls wasn't getting no jobs back in the day. Girls wasn't going through kind of like that journey to create the look. Girls, you had the Tyra Banks, you had just all those Black girls we looked at. Even you go to a Raven, like these are girls who we all saw, and it was like they were pretty, but it was like the Blackness made it just overwhelming. And so that is, I would say that's the other half of my kind of role model rooting of myself, is to not allow people to remove my Blackness, because in my womanhood, my tie to my Blackness amplifies.
Absolutely.
Right? My womanhood, and therefore that causes conflict sometimes with some of the spaces that the world lets me be in. But then the Colleen part of me kind of slips in. I can tell a joke, and they'll be like, "Oh, we didn't like what she said, but she funny, so we gonna let it slide."
I love that.
So we talk about development and impact. Take us back to young Dominique in Omaha.
Lord. Yes, Omaha, Nebraska. Shout out to Omaha, Nebraska. The birthplace of Malcolm X. Because the girls ought to be like, is black folks there? Malcolm X was born in Omaha, Nebraska. Simone Sanders, my good sister. Honey, if she wouldn't have tackled that white man, honey, Bernie Sanders wouldn't be around here boogieing like he is now.
That's
hey,
right. Feeling the pain.
There would be no TV One.
Come on,
without, you know, a
come
Kathy
on.
Hughes from Omaha, Nebraska. So that is, I talk about Omaha no matter where I live, no matter where I'm at, because it did make me. I think if you can make it in Omaha, if you can become a national name in Omaha,
You did that.
you know, like that was a test for me. But young me, Omaha was my world. You know, I was born in 82. So, you know, when I'm early 90s I'm 11, 12, 13. So it's literally, things would come to Omaha. We would get things in Nebraska 3 years later. I remember having to drive to Kansas City, Missouri when Destiny's Child released No 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 as a single. Like driving 2.5 hours to go get it, because who knows when we would have gotten it in Omaha, or you would have had to order it from like Sam Goody online, you know. Concerts really didn't come to town. So like when it came to culture, it was kind of what landed, but I kind of am thankful for that as well, because who you were was who you were, because there wasn't a lot of influence to kind of, you know, we used to say back in the day, you biting on somebody, so I don't know if young folks say that anymore. But, you know, that would happen. You would have the rare person who would move away and maybe come back with a little something. But really, we were very insulated. And I think it also allowed me to be unaware, but thankfully unaware. And what I mean by that is kind of like coming out of the Matrix. Once you know how oppressive the world is just because of your blackness, once you realize how much you're being mistreated, it's really difficult to navigate this world. And I had a childhood where no one ever talk to me about racism. I knew I was black, but I did not get that there was never any conversations around like how race shows up. Martin Luther King wasn't a holiday. Martin Luther King Day wasn't a holiday when I was a kid, you know. And in Nebraska, we definitely weren't talking about Martin Luther King. So it allowed me to kind of be sheltered from what the world was going to immerse me in. So there was a sheltering that was good. I had my mom and dad; they were super protective of us. The street I grew up on is a street that they named after me. So like we had like 5 houses on that block. All of our parents were friends. They grew up together. They went to high school together. All of like my friends, my mom and they were friends, and they were all pregnant with us at the same time. So like we were all given so it was like a lot of things were decided for me.
Yeah.
And you know, there are times I'm like, I wish. But looking back, life was very easy. My father worked for the water company. Mother was a stay-at-home mother. And so my world was small, and I'm thankful for that I can look back and be like, okay, there was a time where even in like not having a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? Being black and in Nebraska, where I'm like, I remember a picket fence time. I remember when my biggest concern was, you know, in the summer, is mom gonna let us play on the sprinkler? And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my parents, my grandparents. I come from a very big family back home. To have that, but it was very grounding, and it lets you. I can never forget who I am, because it was so loud, it was so expressed, it was so prominent. Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It makes me want to drive into another question of, are you able to process that in that way now, or did you always feel that way? Even growing up, did you process it and contextualize it in that way?
When I was younger, I felt oppressed. I didn't have the language of being oppressed.
Yeah.
But what I know now, and the reason I'm able to reconcile and kind of process, is that the oppression came from just in my body. So it wouldn't have mattered if I would have been living in the Hollywood Hills. I was not I was not rooted here, but that wasn't. I did not have the know-how or the people around me to help investigate that, and so the first kind of indicator of something that could be an answer was, oh, there's gay people. I got to be okay. That has to be the answer. And there was a piece of, have you ever been really hungry for something, and somebody's like, I got this. And it's almost that, but it's not exactly that. And so it'll satiate you, but you'll be like, but girl, I really wanted this. Yeah. And so I came out when I was 12. Like, that's how much I was like, if I don't hold on to something, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, like, if I don't hold on to something, the storm is going to take me.
Yeah.
And so, like, queerness, not even queerness, gayness, because we weren't even talking, like, queer, that wasn't even that. So it was like, exactly. So, like, gayness was like, okay, this is an anchor. This is something. This, I'm not what the world is telling me I am. And this is all I'm seeing. And so, me not being rooted in myself, in my accountability and doing, I talk to my friends who have, whose parents have passed, or just, I talk around parents, but anyone, if you've had a relationship that wasn't the best when someone passed away, and people are always like, well, we won't be able to fix it. I've done so much work around healing my relationship with my parents without them here on this earth, because I had to process that, and in processing that, it was figuring these things out. It was apologizing to them of like, this was my stuff, and I'm like, oh, y'all not making me feel welcome. Y'all not this, y'all not that. And it's like, at 41, I've now lived longer than my father, but at this age, my parents had four children. 3 of them were adults. Right? It's like, baby, I don't even have the capacity for a puppy.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
My God, plants are barely made.
Hello. So it's just like that was a clear thing. It was like everything else. It was everyone else's problem. I'm poor. I'm not happy. This, that, and the third. And the irony is that I went on the journey post incarceration to acquire all those things, and then upon getting them, I was still unhappy. 2018, 2019, and then I was just like, oh, something. I had the 6 figures, I had the things, and so God and the universe is funny in the ways that sometimes you have to eat your words, and I think my transition was my biggest apology to myself and offering of grace to myself. Because I think there's also this conversation of, you too old to do this, that, and the third. Like, I'm not a fan of Caitlyn Jenner, but my critiques of that lady have never been that her transition happened in her 60s, right? It's never too late to give yourself what you were owed, right? Everybody, like, I struggle when Black folks can comprehend reparations around whiteness, but not reparations to themselves, through themselves. Like, I can't control what a white person will do. But if I can't give myself reparations, well, and
that's where I need to start first.
Hello, to even get a real definition of what will land as a giving back, a replenishing, a restoration, and my transition was the biggest giving back, restoration, apology, grace offering that I could have given myself, but specifically in this question, like young Dominique. To say like, no, you weren't crazy. You weren't a bad kid. Your parents weren't bad parents. You weren't happy. You weren't you. And so I'm a huge advocate of let people be themselves. Let people be themselves, because that will position them to be the greatest version of themselves, even if themselves is not pretty right then. You got to start somewhere. We want people to be like together, and it's like we don't let them start and get to greatness. This idea that greatness just happens out of nowhere is bullshit. It's a lie. That's social media. Right? And so, it's important.
Having that permission. So, okay, follow up, because you brought up like the prison stint, and I think most people know you like the post, right? And so jumping back to young Dominique, what were your fears? What were your dreams? Your passions?
I had a ton of fears that were not my fears. because my world was so small. It was like I hadn't seen a lot to really have like original fears. My fears were like my mom was afraid of heights, so I'm like, I'm never gonna get on a plane. So like when people are like, oh my God, you started talking, I was like, if y'all only knew. And if my mother was alive right now, the way this lady would be worried, the way that I would be having to call upon getting on the plane, upon landing, because I just remember that. Just so many. I think there were more unknowns than fears, but they were synonymous at the time. But now they're more. I recognize there were a lot of unknowns because how's the world going to treat you? How's the world going to navigate you? I hadn't seen anyone be. Not everyone's witnessed someone become a boss. Now somebody has witnessed a whole bunch of people go from Vine to being a millionaire. Now you've witnessed. That was not the story back then.
Sure.
That was not the story, and so. I had unknowns, and so I wanted to be. I remember I wanted to be a teacher. Like it was first grade, and they had you like draw like what you wanted to be, and I wanted to be a teacher. And I think I've been a literal teacher. Like my career started as a sex educator right out of undergrad, but I try to teach in everything I do. When people, even if it's a funny post or something on social media, I'm trying to give people something.
Yeah.
Usually the first person is me. No shade. Like this, sometimes I'm processing for myself. Sometimes but I'm like, oh, maybe this is a space for other people. But I wanted to be a teacher. I wrote my first song when I was like 7, and I thought something was wrong with me because I would hear harmonies and melodies, and I was just like, people shouldn't be hearing music like that. Like that's weird, right? And there was this toy called the Teddy Ruxpin. Old heads, the throwback girls know what I'm talking about. It was this teddy bear, honey, that had a tape player in the back of it. And so you would get these books, and then you put the tapes in there, and then Teddy's mouth would move. It was right before Chucky, so we were still okay in black households that have the animatronic toys. And then those movies came out, and then every black mom was buying it, because Teddy disappeared somewhere, honey, after Chucky came out. Colleen said, "Not on my watch." But boots. So that year it was 89. So I was 7. I got the Teddy Ruxpin. I got those tapes, and then my mom got me the Rhythm Nation tape. But then she got me the single, and it had the instrumental on the other side. That was back when you get the tapes without the instrumental. And I just was listening. I just started writing down words. And so, but I was very closeted around music because, again, what you see, what you hear is like, I am a 10 or 2 on a good day. Like, we've been warmed up, we've been doing the things. Yeah. We're fully, arms are above the head. We're in the studio, like the temperature is exactly how I needed to be. You brought in somebody else to sing before me, so I felt challenged. So I'm really, everything was good. Hello, but on average, I'm a baritone. So when you think of black voices, we really celebrate higher voices, no matter the gender.
Yeah, very true.
No matter the gender. So like that attitude was like, I didn't hear anybody who sounded like me. Yeah. But music and teaching was like, I was like, I think this is where I'm going to go. But I just didn't understand how I was going to get to it. Yeah. And I think, my incarceration was I got a PhD before I got a bachelor's degree. I say that a lot because my incarceration really forced me to grow up. It forced me to challenge a lot of my biases and not even knowing that that's what was happening because I just was living. And it gave me a spirit of independence that there are times it can err on the side of hyper, but with this growth around emotional intelligence and like my things, I usually can keep it in a good, safe space to where when the world shakes, I still can be grounded. Yeah. But if it shakes too much, I have the capacity to ask for support. But my incarceration, I said to someone the other day, I believe that I could have gotten these lessons other ways. But it just so happened that for me, those almost 10 years turned me into a beast, truly, in the best way.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving this conversation. And you really made me think you're talking a lot about growth and overcoming by way of experience, right? And I went back to your TED Talk, your TEDx, and I listened to that thing. I was like going back. Like, what did she just say? Had to rewind because you said so many powerful things. But one of the things I wanted to pinpoint was how you brought up this fact of how pretty much, we talk about resilience, right? And we almost become infatuated with the beauty of resilience and the beauty of strength and the beauty of overcoming.
For certain people.
For certain people. Right?
That's the one.
Certain lived experiences and certain realities. And we forget to humanize what it took to navigate that. And you took a moment and you said, I wish more people would just pause and just even say, I'm sorry you even had to navigate that, right? I'm sorry we even have to share the story of resilience and strength. And as you talk about growth and overcoming, I just think it's a powerful moment right there to stop the question and just leave it as a phrase to say we admire your strength and resilience and all the things, all the badass that you bring because of that, but also we hold space for what it took to get to that. And just wanted to hold that for a second. So thank you for your journey, not just where I brought you to today, but that we're still here to even get it.
Listen, y'all get to.
Yeah.
So I get to run around here, honey.
Yeah. Oh, listen, we got space.
We make
so
space.
Thank you for that.
Yes,
thank you.
That TED Talk was off the cuff.
Wow.
Because I am like a off the cuff speaker.
Yeah.
I struggle when people are like, we need, and I understand that in this day and age, a lot of it is around accessibility. Some of these white institutions want to control and see what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But on average, it's accessibility, so I do my best. But with the TED, I remember they were like, you can do your slides. And so, honey, I had written my notes into the and they were like, oh no, you won't be seeing those. So they wanted me to come in and go through. And I had written something because I was like, so this is 2019. Yeah. December 2018, January 2019. I forget when we did it. We did a vision board party. And I put on the vision board resilience because I saw it in the magazine. And then the topic of the TED Talks that year was resilience.
Wow.
And I was like, I think I should submit.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels...
Calling.
Yeah. And it was also the 10-year anniversary. 2019 was 10 years of me being incarcerated. I think we filmed that on February 10th. February 16th is my anniversary. So this year it'll be 15 years. So there was a lot, and we really, I had done a lot of work around owning my prison number. I had trademarked it. I had done a lot of work, but I remember when I went and I did it, and then I went home and I was like, this doesn't feel right. And they don't let you stop.
Yeah.
They're not gonna splice it together. Yeah. If you mess up, they're gonna let you look a fool. Yeah. And I remember going to my friends and saying, listen, black people, I know we will do black things and be late, but I need all of y'all in the front row, because between y'all and I will work on these slides that I feel like will ground me. I believe I'm going to give what I believe, honestly, is my best speech ever. And that is why, even to this day, although it's before my social transition, I'm not going to allow society's mess to make me be ashamed about that, because it's a reminder to myself some days. So I know it's that for other people. And I just came back to, like, what you said is like, again, I'm a comic book nerd. And so Deadpool is kind of discussed in the TED Talk, but even if you think of the Phoenix Force with Jean Grey, you can't go through the fire and not get singed.
Changed.
You can't. And that is and so this idea when people come through the other side, that it's like this celebration, but there's no care, there's no additional support, right? Even when I became successful, it was like people's desire to not recognize that yeah, I'm this executive director in 2017 of this organization, but just like 8 years later, I had it's not enough.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just now getting to the point, and there's some things from incarceration that I will never shed, ever, right? And so, but people's desire to see you as, and I think the resilience is not just celebrating like this. You kind of came through that fire, but we also don't want to talk about that no more, and only talk about it when we really want to hear about it. We don't want that to be used as a reason or a discussion as to why maybe you are not. The most poised or whatever your thing is. Because I remember when people started messaging me, well, why do you wear your prison number? Like, you're so past that. Who said I'm past that?
Right.
That was my name inside. There are whole cultures of people where we recognize the atrocities and harms that have happened, how it imprints upon not only them but their lineage. I was in solitary confinement for 18 months of that 10 years. I lived on death row. There's one. Have you seen Boys Don't Cry, the movie? Y'all should watch it. It's about a young trans man named Brandon Tina from Nebraska, from Humboldt, Nebraska. Became a huge movie. Hilary Swank won an Oscar for playing Brandon. It was one of the first kind of mainstream trans stories in a movie. But Brandon was in Nebraska, and I think Brandon's story predates Matthew Shepard.
It does.
But because Brandon was trans and it was Nebraska, it was not discussed the same way. But Brandon was a trans man dating this cis woman. These two young men in the city had engaged with the young cis woman, but also was friends with Brandon, found out Brandon was trans. They sexually harmed Brandon, all these things. Brandon reported it. These two young men went into this house and killed everybody in the house.
3 people.
And including a young black queer man that nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
And it was hush, hush, hush. So in Nebraska, there's 6 prisons, but they had built this supermax prison in Tecumseh, Nebraska, which is maybe 3 hours from my hometown, very rural. And so when they put me in, when they decided I was going to be in solitary for a long term, they were like, well, they knew that they did not have me down there for a rule breaking, so they were running out of beds and room space. And so they're like, we're going to place you on the death row gallery just because of the housing situation. And so there were 2 guys there was a guy on either side, of course. And they were really nice. I remember being afraid. But these guys would wake me up and make sure I didn't miss breakfast. This guy John would come and clean my window. So you had a front window, but I had one small window that actually would get outside light. But because we were down near the mud, sometimes I would get covered. So John would go out there and clean my window because they had more movement privileges because this is where they would be full time. They would give me food, give me stamps and things. And one day, this correction officer was like, you need to be careful around John. I was like, you mean John? You're making honey buns and stuff for us and birthday cakes and all this stuff? My neighbor was one of the boys who had killed Brandon. His name is John Lauder. And so even in that time of me living on death row, I didn't know it was preparing me for what I needed to do at Black and Pink, this abolitionist work of, even when I'm struggling with the charge, doing away with the hierarchy of who's good and who's bad and who deserves. Because this man who 20 years before at that time, who had killed a trans person due to their trans identity, was one of the nicest, most consistent people I had engaged with the 6 months I was there. And I was very visibly presenting as female during my incarceration, right? And laughing and we talking and we watching Fantasia on that season of American Idol. The sheriff from the story was a correctional officer in the facility.
Wow.
Right? So it's just my incarceration kept teaching me. Some of the nicest people in the last 20 years of my life have been people who have been murderers and rapists and all the things. I have sat next to senators who have treated me like trash. I have sat next to doctors who have treated me like trash. I have sat next to so it gave me an early training of how someone starts has no guarantee of how it ends. And flash forward, when I became the ED of Black and Pink, we started sending in gifts to the people in prison. And they at first they were only wanted us to send it to the good prisoners. And I was like, if we can't send it to everybody, we're not gonna do it. And so we were this black trans-led, by the time this was happening, I transitioned, a black trans-led organization in Omaha, Nebraska, sending in gifts to all of these incarcerated people, including the people on death row. And John Lauder's attorney wrote a tweet thanking me and remembering me all that time ago. And I remember there was trans girls who were so upset. They were like, oh my God. Well, I was like, Black and Pink literally is about this idea that no one is their worst choice. Yeah. I don't live that value based on the situation. I sit down and meet with people who were locking me in cages. I went to Georgetown with my juvenile judge.
Wow.
Right? So it's just like, I have to live in this 100%. If I base it on a situation or certain people who done, it does not work. And so my incarceration, I'm sorry for that long tangent, but I want people to acknowledge, I want to express that. All that to say, those things happened because of the people during my incarceration. The system didn't give me those experiences. The people did. So I still believe in the divestment of incarceration, because just me being locked up did not give me that evolution. It was the Black folks who sat me down and taught me how to play spades. And yeah, I didn't eat for that first week, because like, you lose your trade, you ain't gonna eat. But baby, once I got in my bag, I got in my bag. And I've secured $1 million deals in the last year because I know how to run a wheels, not because I went to Stanford.
Yeah. Clock that.
So you have to
clock that too.
you have to you have to look at all of those pieces and how the universe will just bring those ways of knowing and will bring those opportunities, those ahas, and people around you. Stop letting people tell you that because the lesson came at a time when maybe you weren't at your best, that you have to do away with that time. Because if I had that mindset of everything that happened to me before March of 2020, when I took my first dose of estrogen, I can't talk about, because that means that I'm not respecting my trans womanhood. Well, all those lessons live there. Or you know, there was a time when I didn't want to talk about my incarceration when I started activism. It's like, there's so much that lives there. And then God said, your biggest moment is going to come from you running an organization that is about freeing people that are just like you. I was moving $2.5 million a year in bail support across the country. You ever walk into jail and get somebody free? These girls hashtag get free. These girls are not doing those things with love. But I'm saying, like, that's how the world brought it full circle. It's like, I knew those systems, yes, because I was able to get into these classrooms, get this education, but I knew these systems because I had been booked. Because I know how long it takes between booking before they're going to cut your nails off and make a trans girl cut her weave out. I got to get there now. I can't wait 2 hours to go get that girl. I know that. You think it can wait because you think it's all the system. I'm telling you,
there's a person there.
Yeah. There's a person. And it'll be more harm done even if I get her out if I wait 30 more minutes. So yeah, all of that, from incarceration to there, the conversation about resilience, the being able to just sit in my whole story gets me here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just
so happy.
Yeah.
Like,
there's so much. And honestly, I'm glad that you took us there as well, because one of my questions was just around, the data around folks who are incarcerated, specifically folks who may or may not call themselves a member of the LGBTQ plus community, right? And so, all the data, you have your own lived experience, of course, but how can people outside support people inside?
Well, I break it down by levels because I also feel like everyone feels like our activism has to look the same. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has the same capacity. Right, so y'all are all folks in the mental health place, social workspace, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how that lie was told to us. And then you get into that hierarchy of needs, it's like most of us will never make it past that first level. But when shout out to TikTok, it was this educator on TikTok who did a video explaining how he had stolen that from the Blackfoot Indians, and how the original hierarchy was based on, if I take care of myself, if I take care of those around me, it will activate cultural perpetuity of my people. And I'm like, oh, that's doable. We've been doing that, right? And so I say that to say, I tell people, who's in your world who's navigating incarceration? I'm always flabbergasted. There are people who will advocate around the issue, and the people that are close to them. There was a pastor, I had to clear him on social media one day because he had just tried me too many times. But one of the most egregious things I saw this black man do, this black man of God, he would go to the prisons and he would go and meet with people, but he would not visit his son that was in that same prison. Wow. And so find the people around you who are navigating those things. Don't throw them away. Don't hold people that people think that abolition is lacks accountability. Abolition calls for that much more accountability. So people are making choices, people are making decisions. We know systems are at play, but don't throw people away, because I promise you, the moment that a person feels disposable, they'll do disposable things.
One more time.
The moment that people feel disposable, they will do disposable things.
That is a bar.
I'm telling you, having been at the edge before, and then randomly, even when it's been me doing it, there was times that I would go and order magazines because I knew if I need to get mail to feel like the outside world knew I existed. It would be those days, and then right during count, a magazine would slide on their door, and it's just it's small. But it would be a retethering. Yeah. Somebody outside of this place knows my name. And so start with your people. Especially we're talking about the South. What is it? I forget where it's at, but there's a prison. They just found 213 bodies that they had buried behind the jail because they didn't want to bury these folks properly. Because this black mama, it might have been in Alabama, this black mama was looking for her son. Wow.
Yeah.
And they're still finding bodies. And it's legal. These are proper graves. This is how they. If you don't get retrieved at Black and Pink, some of the work that I did that people will never know about is how many times I was someone's next of kin. How many times I've sat in jails and held people's hand as they took their last breath. Wow. How many times I coordinated. Okay, what we want to do with this body. What we want to do. Okay, you want to be cremated. How many times I have carried a person's ashes on a flight, on a work trip, because they've never been to San Francisco, they've never been to New York, and then I'm going to spread their ashes. Yeah. So like life don't stop because we lock people up. So just see people, know the true story of what happens with incarceration. I think there's a perception that. Especially me, like I want everyone, I would love for everyone to have the perspective I have around incarceration, but I know that's not possible, and I want people to really come to things as they come to them, but tell the truth. Start saying you just want people to be punished. Rehabilitation does not happen in these facilities. They don't have even if these institutions have the desire to do so, they don't have the capacity because we overcrowded them. We overcorrected with an approach that had no spirit of correction. So we just be putting people in stasis.
It's the spirit of profit.
Well, now that's coming into it as well, right? I was talking to my nail tech. Shout out to Sets by Juju. But I was talking about, I lucked out in the time I was incarcerated. I missed some Black cultural things, so like the long T-shirt era. So my one of my best friends, Ashley Spivey, she went to Jackson State. Shout out to Jackson State. But she always makes fun of me because I didn't know who Scrappy was. I knew Scrappy from Love and Hip Hop. Mm-hmm. Like I was at the Hawks game and they was trying to do the swag surf. I was like, Auntie ain't able.
Yeah.
I was not, you know, I was incarcerated during that time, so I missed some cultural things, but I came right at the time before the technological shift. So in 2009, MySpace was petering out. People were just starting to use Facebook and all that stuff. And I was talking to her and saying, like, if I had gotten out of prison in 2012, 2013, I would have been deeply behind. Yeah. Like, I came right before YouTube became big.
That was a chunk.
Right?
Yeah.
I came right at the time where technology didn't leave me behind. The cultural stuff, there are the moments in real time when I'm like, dang, I wish I would have been here with people. But you can go, I make playlists. I've asked Black people to make playlists. Like, do playlists, what movies are not. So you can go and immerse in that.
Yeah, for sure.
But the technology piece, make sure that these young people are getting 20, 30-year sentences.
Yeah.
They going in at 20 and coming out at 50.
It's a whole different generation.
Yeah. That's a whole conversation within
right,
itself.
and so in regards to that, so just like tell the truth of what the system is.
Yeah.
Because when we don't, it makes it seem like, oh, you were locked up, you got this chance to be rehabilitated, and you got out, and you just don't want to do well. No, these people didn't get no tools.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, as someone who was in it every day, I know girls who are doing sex work in prison via Facebook. I know girls doing FaceTime shows. Catch it. They talk a whole lot about, you know, that meme, all these states, and you think your man is in the state prison. Imagine a man out here buying OnlyFans from trans girls locked up. The girls are surviving the same way in there as they had to out here. You ain't getting no respite there. They took the degrees out. I left prison, thankfully, with an associate's degree in culinary management. You know how I got that? I would work 12-hour days in the prison kitchen. I was making $3.21 per day. I was feeding 1,600 incarcerated people. And then at night, I would go in the lab and do like all of my assignments. And I was like, I'm gonna leave here with something. Because that was my thing. I was going to run kitchen. I was like, oh, you know, I could be a kitchen manager. I had that. I was like, I need something. But there's no supports. There's no education. The girls can barely get an STI test. We can barely get the girls their HIV medication.
And then COVID.
They don't want to give the girls PrEP. How they handle COVID. These people are locked up and y'all can't keep them healthy. The only way they're catching COVID is your staff is tipping through. So tell the truth of what incarceration is. Take care of those around you. Tell the truth of what incarceration is. And last but not least, ask why 5 times. It was years ago, and I was in like a circle, and the activity was, you ask, it could be the most benign question. Who's your favorite singer? Who's your favorite singer?
Jasmine.
Why?
She blows down.
Why do you say that?
She's passionate.
Why do you think that?
Because her pen game.
And what is that based on?
Her work.
And why do you think her work is based on her passion?
Her connections.
And why does passion matter to you?
Because it's fuel.
And why do you need fuel?
To be alive.
That's good.
A lot of people ask why being messy.
Yeah. But that intent different.
But that intent is different. And so that's the third thing that I tell people. Do it no matter what. If you see, no matter who's telling it. You see me talking about abolition? Because in my mindset, you asking me the why, either I'm going to be further convicted in my understanding, or I'm going to be exposed to a new way of thinking. Either way, I'm good. Huh? If what you believe can only exist in a bulletproof surrounding, well, my goodness. Hello, my good sis Louis Fonseca from Advocates for Youth, and does incredible work in the digital space for Latinx folks around HIV and AIDS. He said at a conference like 2 years ago, if you convince somebody, they're simply convinced. And that means that somebody else can come behind you and convince them too. Yeah. And so ask that why. You see people talking about numbers, why? You see somebody talking about, well, this person did this. Well, why did this? Why? Don't take things as face value when it comes to a system that has existed for hundreds of years and they can't show you data that shows it's effective. Prison is one of the only systems that has billions of dollars flowing into it, and there's no theory of change.
No theory of change.
There's no if prison was a nonprofit that was just built by, it would have been shuttered. The grants would have stopped
immediately.
Because you have engagement numbers.
But you also get reoffending numbers because it's not rehabilitating nobody.
But your efficacy, honey, is in the gutter. So I implement that.
Who going? Who got next?
That. Yeah.
Come on.
So I'm gonna jump us a little bit here.
Yeah.
So your depth, right? Your context, your heart is there for this work. That is very, very clear. The heart is there, but there's a skill set. There's a professional lens that you bring to this work where heart and mind both meet to produce maximum results, right? And navigating that as someone who's been through the system, all these different things, but you are a groundbreaking leader. like that's a whole other word we really have to identify and place here. A leader that is leading national and global efforts. Like that alone is mind-blowing. Can we talk about the journey of navigating that space and developing professionally along that path? Not just, the individual story that got you there, but as a professional, what has been the journey of developing in that way?
I think in that journey, I have benefited from my neurodivergency, and one of the things that I got my ADHD diagnosis at 37, and it was really work that made me even go and ask those questions. My great grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I was maybe a year into running Black and Pink, and I was like, I'll be looking at the screen for like 2-3 hours, like just going through it. And I remember I called my therapist. I was like, is there such thing as early onset Alzheimer's? Like what is going on? And she was like, girl, I don't know if it's that, but we'll but I have a psychiatrist friend we'll go through. Cause I'm like, ADHD at 38, ain't nobody said nothing to me. And so going through that, one of the first things I did was I was like, so much of what I knew, said, was imprinted on me. And because I knew I had navigated the system for much of my life, that means that I was carrying a lot of the system's definitions and beliefs in me. And so I started off with just like undoing either reconfirming a definition of a word and what it meant, or coming up with a new version that was for me. And so this idea of being a professional was important because there was no traditional route to that for me in the beginning. And I don't even know if I thought that, and I think if that would have been my goal, I really probably wouldn't have started, right? It was like, I just want to do good work. I just want to do, I used to say, like, when I leave here, I want people to say, Dominique did good things. I never forget my daddy's funeral, the lines of people who stood up there and said good things about him. I'll never forget years after my daddy being gone, just running into people he worked with and be like, your dad was a good dude. That matters to me. My nieces and nephews back home, my sisters, my cousins and them. I got a cousin who lived here in Atlanta. I done lived here for a year and a half. I ain't seen that boy once. But he'll say my name, and people will be like, oh yeah, Dominique's good people. That was my first, that was like my reason. But to be that type of person where the way that people speak about you when you're not there reflects that, took me kind of being like, knowing your stuff. Every morning I wake up, what do I know 100%? What don't I know? If I don't know it, and I usually, this conversation comes from if I feel a twinge of jealousy when I see somebody else being able to do something, I'm like, okay, well, if you jealous or you got that feeling, then you need to learn how to do it, because get into the field, as the children say.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't matter, and if I don't want to learn it enough to get into the field, then I need to be okay with not knowing it. And then my next step is, who knows it the best and how are they in my universe?
Yes.
And so that was like the foundation piece, because I didn't know anything about being an executive director. I graduated my undergrad in May of 2016. The lady who used to help me do emergency assistance to keep my lights on when I first got out of prison, because I came home in February of 2009. My mother died in December, and my youngest sister was 12, and even though I hadn't been out for a year, I was the best positioned to adopt Andrea. So I was out of prison less than a year, and I had a 12-year-old. We were in this one-bedroom apartment, and I'm just trying to make it, waiting tables, but still need to be there for her and all that. And so Ann Smolsky, I'm gonna say her name, used to help me with those services. Well, she had been hired as the reproductive health director for Charles Drew Health Center in serving the blackest part of Omaha. And I was her first hire. And she walked into the president's office, Kenny McMorris, a black man, and said, HR is gonna show all this lady's criminal record, and I'm telling you, her works, we need Dominique. And Kenny said, okay, but when somebody give you okay, it's your the okay man, okay girl.
Okay.
So go one way or the other.
And so Ann doing that positioned me there, Kenny, and so that was 2016. I was the ED of Black and Pink by December of 2017. Do you see what I'm saying? Like boom. And I had, my undergrad is in public health. So it wasn't given running a national, what I turned into a multi-million-dollar organization. Yeah. So that was important. So just knowing my things, having people around me that offset me and being excited that they offset me. Being a person that is not shy about where my intuition comes from. Andrew, my best friend, Andrew Aliman, he is a therapist, social worker, and an Aquarius. Andrew was my caseworker when I got out of prison. I told y'all this on our call. And, we became friends, and then he came and took over programs at Black and Pink. Is now the Deputy Director of People Power and National Partnerships. But he'll tell people all the time, like, if Dominique had a dream about it, we might end up Opportunity Campus and that building and that land I dreamed that. Lighten House, I remember seeing the windows and that light and the wood floor. So when I went to that house, I was like, this is the one. The Sex Worker Liberation Project was something. And I've never been shy about it, because your inspiration and your purpose will come from anywhere. Don't let people, every bit of data that exists that people will try to utilize to assuage people from doing something is based on somebody who did something the first time. Me being a professional means that I'm never afraid to be a new data set. Last year was a hard year, my first year in philanthropy. It's a whole different field. And I was a Black trans woman in philanthropy. I am one of 2 Black trans women in this whole country who are directors of funds. It was hell the first six months. We had an all-staff meeting on Wednesday, and child, it was like 2 hours. So like about an hour in, I kind of and the gag is, I was like looking at it, and my text message from my phone called my computer, and so it was like, oh my goodness, congratulations, 91%, that's unheard of. And I was like, child, what the hell are they talking about? And so I go back to the slide, and they had a slide of growth of all of the 9 funds. The Fund for Transgenerations had a 91% growth in 2023. And then people didn't really let me start really working until probably July, August. And so, but everything I did in that 6 months was based on, this is what I feel. Yeah. Now, faith without works is dead. So I'm gonna roll up my sleeves, right? So, but please don't let people try to convince you to divest from any space that your inspiration or your purpose comes from. Last but not least, surround yourself with people who you trust so much that when they challenge you, you are so open to being challenged. Going back to an Andrew, Opportunity Campus is supposed to be a whole nother place. You were like, we really need to look at all of these kind of buildings. And I was like, no, we're going to do it right here. Mm-hmm. He was like, I was like, okay. Maybe I begrudgingly went and toured this space. Bitter, angry. And I pulled up and I realized that my great-grandfather had named the neighborhood association where we had pulled up at, and I was like, oh, Grandpa, this is where Grandpa used to build gardens here. And my grandfather was a Republican. So I preface that by saying, so money was big for him.
Yeah.
And he collected coins, and he got me into that when I was young and reading books about it. And we were touring the place, and one of the things that I wanted in my dream is a school, and we walk in and there's these chalkboards that are already there because it was a former Catholic school in the church, and it had a duplex. But I still was angry, and I was like, I'm not gonna let them see that I moved here. But I'm in literally the block radius that my grandfather named, and I went out a door because it was super hot. And I was on the roof, and there was the shiniest nickel on this roof that no one had access to.
He was supposed to be there.
Wow.
Come on now.
So
Keeping the
All that
collection going,
confirmation.
too. Yeah.
So you have to have people around you that are excited to challenge you, not because they don't see their vision, but because they want to see your vision be as big as it can be.
That's powerful.
And I have never, ever done anything on my own. Anything worth talking about, all the first, none that was by myself. It was a Miss Kathy Tyree in Omaha, Nebraska wrote that application to appeal for that street to be renamed. No, nothing I've ever done has been on my own, and it's been because I've surrounded myself with people that when I'm right, they're with me, and when I need someone to pull on my coattails, they're unafraid. And because I respect them and love them and see them in this life, I'm open to it, and I've been able to grow. We're all growing. Whereas, I talked about this as a trans, so much around the trans experience. We talk about gender affirming care, so important. Hormones does not give me emotional maturity. Estrogen will not expand my way of knowing. If I was, titties, SRS, that does not address the inside.
Wow.
And so it's the people that do that. So my professional career, yes, work hard. I've done all the things. Figure out don't let anybody make you one thing. First year being ED, you're gonna stop that music thing, right? Why? Well, you got this. Well, why I gotta only have one thing?
Come on.
They don't ever tell white children they can only be one thing.
Come on.
Right?
Come on. Clock that T.
Right? So it's so don't, make sure you get your coin now. But the diversity of who you are, I am how we met, it was like that panel. I was like, well, why y'all put me on this panel? Because it was ISIS, and Kaylin was hosting, and all these actors, and people were always like, well, Dominique will be with the actress girls, and then Dominique will be with the singing girl, and then Dominique will be there with the activist girl, and then Dominique will do the thing.
Talk about
Pivoting, because I like all of those things.
Yeah.
Do they all compensate me at the same level? No. But everything isn't about compensation. Some things just bring me peace and joy, or some things. My music became better when the things that I was able to see in my activism. When I think about how I'm able to engage with people on an activist level, it's the same stuff I do on stage with a song. So everything feeds into each other. So yeah, I'm gonna shut up now. But don't quit making people tell y'all, oh, you got to do this. No, because if you're one thing, and people made you that one thing, they can take that from you.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest crashes and burns we've seen in our society is that people have drank the Kool-Aid of I'm one thing, the world is like, yes, we're that one thing, and the day comes when they're like, oh, we don't really want that anymore, and then when you don't know who you are, we're like, how are these people struggling? Britney Spears. Mama has all these things that she's navigating, but also Britney was that thing. People are struggling with Britney because nobody wants to let her be anything else. Truly. Right? And so like I see it all the time in our society where people are like, I am more, and we're like, no. And then I see the most happy people, and they're multi-hyphenate.
Yeah.
So
you talk about like being multi-hyphenate and this broad range of all your work and scopes. Part of your current scope is serving as the director of the fund for transgeneration through the Borealis Philanthropy. Contextually, can you give people the tea on what that is, what your work is, and the impact of that work as well?
So again, y'all know I'm a comic book superhero nerd. Our president, Miss Emeretta Morris, is like the Nick Fury. She picked us all up to put together this Avengers, right? And so Borealis is an intermediary, and what that means is, I know most people assume when you talk about philanthropy, because it's historically high dollar, that it's the type of philanthropy where it's endowed, meaning that somebody is like, here's $20 million, you will give out that $20 million, and then we'll, replenish that. As an intermediary, we not only are accountable for fundraising, we're the ones who give dollars out. So it makes us unique in a way to where I feel like I'm not the way that I get to navigate capitalism, I feel like gives me a little more space to feel like it doesn't take me over. Okay. Because to be able to fundraise, you have to be able to talk about the work in a way that pulls people in, and I don't think you can do that without still being connected to the people, right? So as long as I'm connected to the people, I it's kind of like a helium balloon. Somebody got to hold you, even if you're flying high. As long as I'm hold on to you, right, it'll be there. And two, the Fund for Transgenerations, which as a director, I am the sole fundraiser, a director of our fund. So I think that's important to say. Borealis is unique in this way that all of our directors are women of color, and 8 out of 9 are Black women. So with an organization with a $60 million budget, you have a president and all of the top level folks whose job is to bring these dollars in, that we are blessed to be able to invest in community, look like us. The other pieces that we have, kind of topic-based or identity-based funds. And I love that in that kind of Avenger scenario, because we get to do our own thing. Yeah. We have, a fund that looks at criminality and policing. We have the Black Movement Fund. We have a Disability Justice Fund. But then we also get to collaborate as funds. So like the Disability Justice Fund and like the movement around Black bodies are creating a initiative around Black folks and disability justice. Spark Justice looks at incarceration. The Fund for Transgenerations, right, looks at trans lives. But as we've spoken about, the way that mass incarceration impacts trans folks is a conversation people don't talk about enough. We're going to be able to, we're collaborating this year on great initiatives that allows me to bring the strong story of the trans experience. And Sade Dumas, who is our director of Spark Justice, she gets to bring her powerful work around incarceration and liberatory practices together. So we get to make these mini teams. We get to be a very strong, large team, and we get to be the catalyst that really gets to shift things on the ground. In my opinion. Having been there a little bit over a year now, are we perfect? No. We're navigating capitalism. These are, again, we're a $60 million organization. I tell people all the time, everybody want to be grassroots until they want a house with some grass. Come on. I was working at Black and Pink. My first year, my budget was $225,000. But my salary was $55,000. I was running a national organization, serving 20,000 incarcerated people before I started the public programs. By the time I left Black and Pink, I had raised nearly $10 million over that time, but we were a $3.2 million a year budget organization. We're not gonna be the same. Yeah. And we just gotta hold that. And also, our people have high need for access to dollars. I wanna live in a world where the dollar doesn't run the things. I want to live in a world where we don't need to buy a building to house someone. I want that. I dream of that. I'm working towards that as an abolitionist. And I'm a realist. It's where we are now. And so what we get to do is be aware of the systems we want to dismantle as Borealis, and we get to use our power and privilege as folks who are knowledgeable about philanthropy, as folks who, many of these systems, they do see us as, you know, the type of activist that they'll want to engage with. I'm gonna let you think that. Give me this money so I can give it to my people, right? I'm gonna give you that. But that also means that I've given, you know, a grant to a girl in Elk Point, South Dakota. I'll trade that. That's where I get to look at my power and privilege. And so that is Borealis. The Fund for Transgenerations, we're going into our 8th grant year. We have a general operating cycle. We have something special that is our Rapid Response Fund that is open now. And so you need to be invited. Rapid Response, you can go to the borealis.org website, borealisphilanthropy.org website, go to the Fund for Transgenerations page, and you can apply for a Rapid Response grant up to $10,000. It usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks for us to move it, but it's a great way to get in community. It's a great way that I get to learn about new stuff that's happening, right? I learned about a lot of new orgs, a lot of new leaders last year. We moved over $600,000 in Rapid Response last year. At a $8,000 to $10,000 mark, that's a lot of grants. Shout out to Lupe Mahida, who is our officer for the Fund for Transgenerations, my good sis, partner in crime. We're hiring for a new associate for the team. I keep saying we're looking for our Michelle. And I said with honor. The girls don't realize Michelle was excited to be there. So that means that sometimes she had the middle note, sometimes she took the high note, sometimes she took the low note. You know, and so we're gonna be. I'm so excited to have the team stronger and serve our people. But Borealis is also super Black, which I'm proud of. We're not perfect, again. For the girl that's gonna come in the comments, I know all of that, and I have no regrets, and I sleep really well at night because I am seeing every day. Borealis brought me to y'all. The partnership with Gilead, these moments, and we get to do this. So really proud, really excited about 2024. We're doing the Crown Project, investing $2 million over 2 years in 10 Black trans femme EDs. One of the highest investments in Black trans leadership that we've seen, and investing in their capacity. The Sanctuary Project, there are 7 sanctuary states, 5 sanctuary cities for trans people, but they're not ready. And we are going to do the work to give them the blueprint to be ready. There was just a trans woman who was killed by her Uber Eats driver last week in Maryland. That is a sanctuary state. We're going to do the work around that. And last but not least, the Halo Academy. Speaking of donors, I said earlier I love being a teacher. I don't do surface relationships, even in professional spaces. For some people that makes them uncomfortable, but I can only be myself. And Halo Academy is the vehicle that allows me to engage with our donors, but also see them, like once you write the check, that's the base level, right? And people are always talking about, when people say capacity building, they want you to be bigger at doing the job that they've hired you for, or that they see you as having. I have the mindset, bigger people do bigger work. So if I focus on the human, inherently everything is going to grow. So I spent the last year in my capstone program, as my capstone project in my program at Stanford on compassionate care. I just got that certification, building Halo. And the gag is, it's built on 7 years of data around youth who are incarcerated and my story. So the workbook, the Discovering Your Power workbook, is the work plan. And we've refined it, and so Halo will launch in the spring. So I'm really excited. Please tap us at Borealis. That's the other piece. We serve the community. We serve the community. There's a racial equity and journalism fund. There's a fund that is looking at investing in LGBTQ plus leaders. There's a lot of powerful work happening at Borealis, led by our incredible leader, Amaretta Morris, and I'm really proud to work for that Black woman. I said that in my interview. I've never had a Black woman that I got to be in community with and be a part of supporting her leadership. And as a Black woman who's been in leadership for a long time, it's not the fact that people are leaders. They forget that somebody has to want you to lead. A lot of these girls are declared themselves leaders, and nobody is looking for them. What did who was that? What did Rihanna Tosier girl? Good luck with finding that stage.
Yeah.
That's real, and so I also am really excited to be in service. And as a Black trans woman, this idea that Black trans women and Black cis women that we're fighting is a lie.
Yeah.
Walk that too.
Is my camera? It's a lie, and it's rooted in something that we don't have time to get into right now. But it's not rooted in but at the core, we're too powerful together. There is a fear. There's a solidarity. There's a population of people who benefit from us being separated, and it's not us who benefit from us being separated. And so in action, I also love that I get to respect her leadership, even when I disagree with her, and be in community with her like that, and show my love and care for her as a Black woman. And she's done that for me as well. And I think that's unique. You know, a lot of girls is surfacey, but it's in action at Borealis. So please check us out, ask us questions, and thank y'all for letting me talk about that, because philanthropy, the nonprofit industrial complex, does a lot of harm to us as Black folks.
Yeah.
And there are spaces that we can hold accountable to investing in us that we don't, and I want to be a part of undoing these cheat codes, so we can make sure that these dollars are in the hands of leaders who can really shift our experiences.
Amen, and I'll share that.
Okay. So I got one last question for you before we switch gears. So in 2023,
Yes.
you had a street named after you.
Correct.
Not just any street, but the very street that you were first arrested
And the street I grew up on.
and that you grew up on. Sit with that and tell us, how did you even process that full circle moment?
I haven't.
Okay.
In Omaha, we have something called Omaha Days. So like every 2 years, a lot of people come from Omaha, people move away. Gabrielle Union's from Omaha. Her mama still lives there. So every 2 years you come back. So like big families do their family reunions, but it's a big parade. It's like a thing. And so it was again, I despise having to choose between my queerness, my transness, or my Blackness. And so, and Omaha Day is very Black. So it was like during Omaha Day, it was in a state that had just passed a law that wanted to define what a woman was. And it was at a time where I was struggling in my career. Like I didn't know if I was on the right path. And I remember I was really quiet about it because you need a unanimous city council vote. And the mayor of Omaha, Jean Stothard, this lady has had campaigned on the school board for like trans kids not having access to bathrooms, all these things. But Jean has always supported my work for some reason. Like February 16th in Omaha, Nebraska is Lighthouse Day. Jean did that. So she signed off on it first. And I had told myself, even if I don't get the unanimous vote, I have this. Then I was like, Riley Gaines, who is doing a lot of activism around trans girls swimming. I'm like, first of all, Black trans girls, like, these are $1,000 wigs, minimum, niece. I don't give a fuck about no swimming girl. But hello. But she was in town at the same time, and I was so afraid because they had to put it in the newspaper. And the news people were reaching out, like, we know this is coming. I'm like, can y'all please not say anything until after the vote? Because I'm like, if they show up, start protesting, I was just afraid.
Yeah.
And God told me, that fear has never been a fuel for my vehicle. And a good friend of mine, Danita Webb, Danita had been fighting cancer. And the day of the vote, I was like, I'm back home. I was going to go see her. We went in that vote. And then the person said, you know, Ms. Tyree, thank you for giving us another chance to honor another notable person from our community. And I was just gagged. It went through, and then we walked out there, and I found out that, like, Danita had passed that day. And so in that week, it was like her funeral happened. Her husband is so incredible. Her children are so incredible. It was just so much happening in that time. And it just was right away. The street renaming happened, and I just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what it meant. And I remember just driving up, and I thought it was just going to be one sign, because we realize how much we don't look at street signs. Mm-hmm. And, but it was, so there's like the house I grew up in, and then there's a sign that's on that corner. And then further down, and we were way down, I was like, well, why are we down here? They were like, they had them covered all down the block. And baby, I just boo-hooed. I just boo-hooed. And I remember my grandmother owned the house we grew up in. My daddy was walking to work from that house. It's just like so much of that street. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, when I pulled that covering off, I was like, first I was like, damn, my name is long. But I was like, the initial reason of my work, like I want people, I was like, okay, I can be done now and be okay, and not in a negative way. I don't have anything else to prove to anyone else. I feel good. There are people who will walk down the street and see my name, to text my uncles, the street they grew up on, to know that it's named after me now. Judge Surkovich, my juvenile judge, was there. Ann and Kenny from Charles Drew. When I saw Kenny walk down the street, Kenny was one of the first black cis like straight men who like made space for me. And he never made me feel awkward around him. And like, I just knew he was an advocate for me. And so Kenny would just show up out of nowhere. He parked, and I remember him walking down, and I was like, you know, with my father being gone, my relationship with black men is so important, because black trans girls need to know that black men love them, that don't find them desirable. Mm-hmm. And like all black girls, our dads are really important. And we also underestimate, it's easy for you to find the auntie. They don't make a lot of unks out here.
Yeah, wow.
I have a lot of older black women who are in my life where I can be like, auntie, I got this going on. And they're gonna come, they're gonna put some blessings. I got that. Black men who I can be like, Unc, I need you. My tires, I don't know what to do. I got some brothers, but there's something important about the power of an older black man who cares about you.
Good.
That is rich. And so Kenny and many men in that space. So it was just I was just overwhelmed. And if you go to Facebook that video, I was crying the whole time. But I will close with this. I was in a holding cell in Elk Point, South Dakota. They had me in this holding cell for nearly a year. It was a drunk tank, and the toilet was a hole in the floor. And my bed was this concrete slab, and it was like this little mattress on top of it, and they would give me, they gave me I asked for a book, and they would just give me the Bible. And I remember I went to lay down, and I said, God, if I am not meant to come out of this is 2001. If I'm not meant to come out of this, please do not wake me up tomorrow. And I remember waking up the next day being so damn mad. Because I thought, one, the fact that I was there, it meant the answer for that prayer was going to be instant. And at that street naming, I was just like, this was what it was. That in 20 years, you can go to Apple right now, Maps, and you can put in Dominique Morgan Street, and it will take you to that street. it's a living example. I don't have biological children. I don't desire biological children. I do believe that I have people I've invested in that I feel like represent me. But there's something important about that street being there. There's something about my cousin, the hood cousin that's like, he'll message me and be like, cuz I came down here on your street and I just had to hit a blunt real quick. You feel me?
Yeah.
The trans girl that was like, girl, I'll be the first girl to sell some pussy on your street. Yes, ma'am. Go get you a piece.
Go forth, niece.
Yes, get you a piece, because I was just like...
Legacy.
Listen. Shout out to Diamond Style, Sonny Marshall's plate.
I am doing.
So it's those moments. It's when it's those moments where I'm just like, oh, I get to be, and the street is not for just one thing.
Yeah.
It's not for one thing, and I think it's the basic. We talked about restoration. We talked about resilience coming through the fire. That will be forever.
Yeah.
I'm still sitting with it. I probably will sit with it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's very permanent.
Right.
And it's very bigger than me. But my name gets to be there. Dominique, I chose my name.
Yeah.
My birth name, and I'm not. I know there's many trans folks who talk about their birth name as a dead name.
Mm-hmm.
I was named after my father. My father is Troy Lee Starks Jr. My birth name was Troy Lee Starks III. But very young one, I was like, this ain't it. So I would like spell it with an I, do all this other stuff, like not knowing I'm trying to feminize because it feels safer for me.
Yeah.
But in segregation, it was 2000. It was 2004. It was my hearing was the day after Janet Jackson did the Super Bowl. I'll never forget. And I chose my name. I had a list of first names, and all I really had was like soap opera and day shows to watch. And so Dominique Devereaux was always like sickening, and so I put Dominique down. And I knew if I had a long first name, I need a short last name. And Jason Morgan from General Hospital, honey. and so Dominique Morgan, and I remember like in SEG, I would ask my neighbors, hey, just start calling me this and see if I liked it. And I have the piece of paper where I would like train myself, because someday people gonna ask me to sign things.
Yeah.
Someday my name is going to be on a marquee. And then that happened like when I started performing. But I never thought that name that I created in that cell below the prison would be on the streets.
But here we are today.
Listen.
Julian, take us away.
Take us home.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start a fun segment. A fun little ditty. We're going to play a game. But it's really just something really brief, like a rapid fire kind of situation. So this segment we call More Bubbles, Please.
Okay.
And we have our bubbles.
Okay.
Okay. So first, maybe let's start with a cheers, because why not? So cheers to everlasting, ongoing love and finding ourselves. Cheers to our journeys. And honoring.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Yes, God. Cheers to perpetual joy.
Come on.
Get it now and keep it.
Absolutely. All right. So, first question. What's the cringiest post of yours on social media? What can you think about that you've ever alive or a moment or anything like that?
Listen, early on, like 2010, 2011, early on when people were doing like YouTube channels and stuff, I was doing this kind of thing called The People's Word with Dominique. And when I say it was a messy boots, and when I say I believe I've scrubbed it from the internet, the way that you can't find certain versions of a Beyonce song because she done came through and cleared the girls, I think I've done that because my way of knowing was so I look back at that. I have a lot of posts like that, if I'm being transparent. But yeah, that as a whole was a bucket space.
Yes. Well, we won't speak of such things.
Do y'all have
No
one?
one's watching.
I guess.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I don't like Facebook present day because I get a lot of reminders.
Oh yeah. Old posts.
High school Earl.
Yeah, them tag photos.
There's a photo that I have wiped, but I have a Playboy hat. I'm not even a hat wearer, right? You talked about a baggy tiara. It's an angled pick. It's giving Young Trade, but it.
Yes! Not a BGC photo. Not a BGC photo. Yes,
but it was.
God.
I looked at it for some reason when I was online, one of my profiles pulled it up, and he was like, "What is this?" And I said, "How did you get that?" But I instantly
Cleaned it.
cleaned it. But no, any Facebook reminder from young me just makes me annoyed.
I don't have any cringe.
Yeah, I stopped myself
Not I have no regret.
before I put them out.
No regrets.
Now, if y'all talk about my gallery, it's a lot of cringy moments.
Next question.
Okay. We're not doing that.
Let's start there. Someone who you want to reconnect with.
What is it?
Someone who you want to reconnect with. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, it can just be
reconnect. You know, an old high school friend, a lover.
Child. You know, so I'm a huge Brandy fan.
Okay. Me too.
Like,
damn.
Huge. And there was just there just came this time that I was so intentional about, like, how I engaged. So we had spent like time together, like maybe 5 or 6 times. Bunch of photos. Like, follow me on Twitter. The Republicans got my old Twitter deleted. But like that. But I've been saying that I need her to go back on tour because like all the pictures, all the videos, all these moments I have are pre-transition, and I still hold them dear. But I really want that moment as a like Brandy stand to kind of in this space, and also like with this access. Like, baby, I remember I caught like 2 Greyhound buses to get to like New York to see her live, and I'm like, come on, auntie, come on back out here so I can, buy up the whole front row section type of tease. Like that kind of, it's a moment. I think as an artist, she's been there at like every pivotal point of my life. Like I was telling Juju, I was like, The Boy's Mind came out, I was like, imagine being a sophomore in high school and really living for a boy, and Brandy and Monica released this song. Baby, we were cutting up, right? And so that is something that I really hope, like, this year. She's getting her star on the Walk of Fame, and I told myself I'm gonna go. But that's something I want to really reconnect with, and just that engagement with her.
And we love Brandy too. But
listen,
we'll
I almost said yes to Ray J's reality show. I was like, y'all need like a Iyanla auntie that's gonna come in and talk to the girls, maybe, because I don't tussle. Just because I was like, you know what, I'm sure B-Rock will be up in here. But Ray J wanted the girls to toss houses and things.
Next question. Have you ever? Sorry.
You won't have me ever.
Right. I'm like, actually, yes.
Hey.
Have you ever creeped on an ex's social media stalker?
I should work for the FBI.
Come on, give me.
to this day.
To this day,
Skillful.
To this day, boots. I said something I made a TikTok where I was like, these young folks, like, they can just throw an Apple tag in somebody's bag or something now. And you can pull up and catch it. Baby, we were downloading apps to track cars, and it would be 5 minutes behind. Baby, just doing the things, and that's another reason why I don't even mess with these young dudes who think they slick, because I'd be like, oh no, that's cute. And it was so one dude was like saying he didn't know this girl, and I saw the girl's story, and I saw a sleeve of a jacket that I knew was his, and I zoomed in and I screenshot it, and I did a cross reference, and I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. So like, that is me. Once I don't trust you, there is that type of energy. And I think with exes, I don't do it with exes just because we're ex. I do it when an ex try to spin the block, because I'll be like, this is why you need to stay off my street type teams. But I'm that friend that if you need something known,
I'm fine.
Henry Louis Gates, he be going to the girls.
I find your roots.
Yes, honey, I find your roots. So holla at your girl.
Yes.
I shame.
I like to know.
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Don't have any? That's it? I close us out with the saying that we've all adopted since we started this process, which is find your people, find yourself. And that is exactly a testament to our friendship over the years. That is a testament to the community we constantly meet, like the amazing Dominique Morgan. And again, we're so grateful to have you on our show today. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, your story, your beauty, and your grace. So thank you all for watching and tuning in to another amazing hit and episode of the G.R.I.T.S Code. Until next time, as always, peace, light, and love.